A surprising turn of events, how Trump achieved a victory with a controversial budget compromise. What was supposed to be a showdown among conservatives and the House Freedom Caucus ended up being a significant shift in the dynamics of GOP politics. On Thursday, hardliners, known for their staunch independence, found themselves unexpectedly supporting the White House's agenda, as the House approved the controversial One Big Beautiful Bill Act. President Donald Trump celebrated his triumph, but this victory came at the expense of several factions within the GOP, who faced political embarrassment of varying degrees, except, perhaps, the party's top leadership. The Freedom Caucus, previously seen as champions of fiscal conservatism, ultimately yielded to pressure. They had strongly criticized the Senate-approved version of the bill, labeling it as a betrayal of the original plan agreed upon by House Speaker Mike Johnson. To put it simply, there was a significant step back from what they stood for. Representative Ralph Norman left a White House meeting with a detailed plan to secure his vote in favor of the bill, but no concessions were made to him or anyone else as the House approved the Senate version of the bill. Changing the bill at this stage would mean sending it back to the Senate, risking missing the once prominent July 4th deadline that was often criticized as arbitrary. One of the Freedom Caucus members, Rep. Chip Roy, expressed his initial reluctance to approve the bill, stating that he couldn't vote for it just because everyone wanted it done by July 4th. However, he ultimately decided to back the measure, reassured by the White House's commitment to stopping Medicaid fraud. But here's where it gets controversial. Rep. Derek Van Orden became visibly upset when asked if his caucus was merely following Trump's instructions. His passionate response highlighted a broader tension between maintaining political independence and adhering to presidential guidance. Interestingly, Senator Lisa Murkowski also voiced her disappointment regarding the potential impact of new work requirements on SNAP and Medicaid beneficiaries. She had hoped the House would refine the legislation, but her reluctance to hold out for those changes allowed Speaker Mike Johnson to move forward with the original terms. In a strategic shift, Murkowski and her colleagues managed to secure a $50 billion fund dedicated to supporting rural hospitals, alongside some Alaska-focused provisions, earning her the nickname Cheap Date from a senior Democrat. As a result, the Republicans did eventually concede. They knew it, and acknowledgement of this reality wasn't easy to accept. Representative Chip Roy spent hours defending Freedom Caucus's stance on social media, reiterating that they had not merely surrendered. Roy's supporters claimed that their repeated objections and ultimate votes still managed to drive the legislation toward a more conservative framework. Rep. Mormon captured the sentiment succinctly. Ultimately, I stand with the president. Andy Harris, the Freedom Caucus chair, didn't provide a clear rationale for his shift by Thursday evening. He retweeted some of the caucus's statements criticizing the bill, but also thanked his online supporters. His latest written statement expressed strong opposition to any Senate attempts to weaken the spending cuts included in the legislation. Interestingly, despite amendments not being passed, even the SALT caucus ended up voting for the bill that reinstates limits on state and local tax deductions. As Republicans seek to justify their decisions, the president's insistence on the bill's timely approval and the visible difficulties faced by GOP members in holding their ground create a challenging scenario for upcoming elections, especially when campaign dynamics heat up. Ultimately, the two significant winners here are Speaker Mike Johnson, who solidified his leadership role with Trump's support, and President Trump, who now has enhanced financial resources for his initiatives. What do you think about the roles played by the president and the GOP leadership in his high-stakes political maneuver? Share your thoughts and join the conversation.